From the creators who brought you RuPaul's Drag Race and $1 Million Listing, this is World of Wonders WOW Report. Things that make us go wow.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the WOW Report, where we count down the top 10 things this week that made us go wow.
Wow.
That's right. I'm co-founder of World of Wonder, Fenton Bailey, joined by editor-in-chief, I'm going to say, of the WOW Report, James St. James. And this week, standing in for Tom Campbell, very special guest, co-editor of the WOW Report, Trey Speegle.
Hello.
Yay!
Hello.
And yeah, I guess without further ado, let's start the countdown with Trey at number 10.
Number 10.
See these pictures?
I do. They look
Behind me?
fantastic. Yes.
So,
Very
so this is a show. I'm in my gallery in upstate New York, and this is a show called the Waldorf Show. The Waldorf was bought by a Chinese company, and they sold all the contents. That was last summer.
Yeah.
And they sold everything. I mean, the beds, the coat hangers, the
candlesticks, the ashtrays, everything. Yeah.
Everything. And a mall in eastern Massachusetts.
And there was some really there was like from the Duke and Duchess of Windsor suite, there was some leopard. Did you get it?
No, but here's the Duke and Duchess. But this wasn't from the auction. This is a news photo. But I bought 25 photographs from the auction. And then I bought news photographs. And I bought memorabilia. I have like these rare things like behind the scenes at the Waldorf Astoria and the Waldorf Astoria cookbook. And so
did you pay for the photographs on the wall behind you for those watching on the YouTubes? What did you pay for those?
Well, I can't tell you what I paid. I could tell you what they're for sale for.
Okay, tell us.
Well, this one is Queen Elizabeth. In 1957 on the dais in the Grand Ballroom with dignitaries. That's her. It says it's 1957, but it's really 76 when she came back. And then this is Lord Mountbatten, who, they blew up in a boat.
Oh, yeah.
I know. I hate to in your bubble. Like the idea that you bought a picture that said 1957 and it was 1977. It sounds like they just shipped off. Maybe they went to Target.
I can show you the back. There's a sticker that says the Waldorf Astoria. No, I think that whoever did there's little captions underneath, and it says 1957. But I mean, you can see she's wearing a floppy hat. It looks like 1970. I checked a lot. She came to New York in 76, so that's probably 76.
And what were they for sale for?
So the ones of the Queen are 750. I also have Joan Crawford arriving.
Fabulous.
I have Liz Taylor. I have Lucy. I've got like Ike and Mamie and all the different rooms. And
how many did you get all together?
25.
25.
I even have Hermione Gingold.
I love Hermione Gingold.
But you got a deal, right? You got a deal. I don't need to know how much you paid, but you paid a lot.
I got a good deal considering because you bought them in lots. So sometimes I got the lot because I wanted one, but I got the other two along with them. And I got a decent price for the size because they're 26 by 26 and they're all framed and they're historically kind of amazing that they hung.
They have provenance, and they're a whole item now on the WOW Report. So I mean, they're worth it.
Yes, exactly. And there will be a post on the WOW Report about it.
The first time I ever went to New York, I stayed at the Waldorf, and I picked up a guy and had sex in my room at the Waldorf. So I have really, really great memories of the Waldorf. And also, one of my favorite parties of all time was when Oscar de la Renta did the Barbie fashion show. I don't know if you remember this. In the 80s, he did all of a whole line for Barbie. And then Drew Barrymore and the Mayflower Madam and Jeannie Francis
in the ballroom,
Diane Brill all walked at the Waldorf in the fashion show wearing Barbie clothes. And it was
at the Wald. It was in the Grand Ballroom.
It was in the Grand Ballroom of the Waldorf. Yeah.
Which is now
landmark.
Let's have a quick
note.
What?
Which is like, so what's happening to the Waldorf Astoria? Like they sold everything. Is it reopening? Is it reopened? What's the deal?
They're turning it into 350 condos and 350 hotel rooms. The hotel won't open until 2023.
And what will it be? Sort of the same style, or will it be
No, I don't think so. They made the rooms bigger because there were I don't know, there was 1,000 rooms or more. At one point, it was the largest hotel in the world.
Yeah.
And then there was the Waldorf Towers, which is where Paris Hilton lived, and like Cole Porter lived there for years. And when he moved, they still have his piano. They kept his piano. And when he moved out, Frank Sinatra asked for his suite.
Well, I know that I just read a book that we've talked about here on the WOW Report called Mrs. Astor's New York, and it talks a lot about how in the ballroom, not the ballroom area, but the grand where everyone would parade
the lobby
down. Yes, in the lobby, in all of their fabulous finery, in the Edwardian days, and people would go there and just sit and people watch, and how it was the place to be. And
there's a question later about the Waldorf too, which relates to that. So and I'll just quickly mention another. So anyway, you can see the show on artsy.net, and you can search Gallery 52 or the Waldorf show. And there's also another online show that my gallery has, which is called Queer Me Now. And it has a bunch of LGBT artists and allies. And one of the photographs, it was taken actually for World of Wonder by Ruben Natal San Miguel.
Oh, yeah, your old friend.
Yes.
Who does so much for the WOW Report.
Yes, he's done a lot. And he shot a beautiful portrait of Chichi Devane, which is in the show. I don't know if you know, she's looking down. It's on a gold background. But that's also on artsy.net as well. So
now,
I just
Trey,
thought
is this exhibition? These exhibitions are virtual only, or can we go visit you in person?
No, this one I just opened.
Please do not go and visit him.
I just opened the gallery this last weekend.
Nice.
For the first time in 18 months.
How do we get there?
Pardon?
How do we get there?
Oh, it's in Jeffersonville, New York. So you'll never find it. It's 2 hours northwest of New York City in the Catskill Mountains. And if you look at TreySpeegle.com, you'll see all the information about that.
Okay.
Very quickly before we move on to number 9, James, only for our YouTube viewers, was that the party that you got kicked out of the Waldorf Astoria for crashing the women's room?
How dare you? No, the time that I was kicked out, that was at BAM. And that was also with Diane, who hid in the bathroom stall as I was being dragged out so she wouldn't get in trouble too.
I think you could do a whole show on places that James
I have been kicked out of the Hamptons. I've been kicked out of the
I guess it's called Waldorf Astoria.
Exactly.
All right, let's move on. Memories of the Waldorf Astoria at Trey's Art Gallery. Look it up online at TreySpeegle.com, right?
Gallery 52, yes.
Oh, Gallery 52. You're welcome.
Yes.
Number 9, James.
Number 9.
Well, this morning I woke up and watched Kevin Can Go Fuck Himself. I don't know if you guys know what this is or have heard anything about it. It is the new Annie Murphy series on AMC. Annie Murphy, of course, so great in Schitt's Creek.
Right.
And it's very odd. It's imagine King of Queens smashed together with Mayor of Easttown. Okay, it's two different types of shows that come together. The first part, whenever she's with her husband, it is an 80s style 3-camera sitcom with a laugh track and an audience, and it's bright colors and it's corny jokes, and it's just, it's cringy, it's terrible. And then the minute he leaves the room, the palette gets all dark and moody, and it becomes this sort of drama, like a Mayor of Easttown thing, where she is going through mental issues, and she is dealing with depression, and she decides that she wants to kill her husband. And it's a very different type of show. And like I said,
I don't understand it. Can I ask you? Is it a show within a show, or is it just
No. It's just two different shows. It's every time she's with her husband, it's this bright, cheery sitcom, and then the minute he leaves the room, it turns into a drama. And the color palette is like Mare of Easttown. It's all washed out. The camera style is different. It's a shaky camera. What?
Single camera, like so.
Single
the
camera,
sitcom
yeah.
is like a multi-camera, and then she goes through the door into
Then
a
sort of
single camera.
documentary style.
It reminds me
Yes.
a bit of Natural Born Killers. Do you remember Natural Born Killers? That great moment when they were on the sitcom, like drenched in blood, and Rodney Dangerfield. And also, James, it's a little bit like a series on I think it's Apple Plus, Physical with Rose Byrne. Because she also hates her husband. And the way they do it in that is everything's very sweet and nice. And then she's got this inner monologue you can hear say, I hate my fucking husband. And I'm like, is this a trend? Women who hate their husband?
Because it's also WandaVision, of course, has every episode is a completely different type of sitcom style from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and today. So it's everybody is sort of playing with narrative and things like that.
Meta.
I'm going to keep watching because the sitcom thing is so broad and so irritating. And it's that whole like King of Queens thing or Family Guy where it's this schlubby guy and he's married to this hot girl and it doesn't make any sense. And the friends are really annoying. It's fascinating and it's annoying.
And is she the same person in both?
She is the same person both times. Yeah. And then she also has fantasies that are sort of like 50s style I Love Lucy fantasies.
It sounds kind of brilliant the way you describe it.
It is. And she's probably going Emmy bound again. And I hope it keeps getting deeper and deeper and deeper into it. And
how many have you watched? Or how many have there been?
The first one was a 2-part 2-hour premiere. And so I watched 2 hours, and then I'm going to do probably the third one tonight.
And it's on AMC?
It's on AMC, yeah.
Well, I think this is brilliant. I would imagine that the sitcom bit is really funny in a very sort of dark way, right? You say it's really annoying. Is it like...
Well, no, they're doing it absolutely serious. They aren't playing it for, I mean, they're playing it for laughs because it's a sitcom, but they aren't being ironic when they do it. It is an actual 90s style sitcom with the audience and laugh track. It's very, and then, like I said, then you go slam into Mare of Easttown.
Kevin can go fuck himself on AMC Plus, right?
Yes.
You can pick it up. All right. Well, James, anything you can do, I can do meta.
Number 8.
Loki. I've been watching the new...
I'm so excited to hear about this.
Oh my gosh. You know, I'm a big fan of the Marvel comic universe. I'm not really a comic book action hero junkie, but I just love the Marvel, the MCU.
This is where we differ because I'm DC and I hate Marvel.
I know. But I think what Marvel does, to your point, is it plays with all these levels.
Yeah.
And there's sort of the meta on the meta. It's not just meta, it's meta on meta. It's M squared. I over E equals MC squared or something. It's very, very clever. And in this, Loki is played by Tim Hiddleston.
Tom Hiddleston.
So good. Tom.
So sexy. So wonderful.
He was in The Night Manager. He plays a very British guy. And of course, Loki is... I remember having a crush on Loki as a kid.
Sure.
He is from Norse mythology. He's the cunning trickster who has the ability, I didn't know this, to change his shape and sex. And so everybody's very excited this Pride Month saying he's the first gay MCU hero.
Well, he's iconically, I mean, he's canonically bisexual, yes. And so, and that's very exciting.
That's established in this series.
Yeah.
And for us, the sort of story basically is, you know, as you probably know, Loki has been killed multiple times in the MCU, but in this instance, they are following a timeline variant. And what that leads us to is the TVA, which is the Timeline Variant Authority. And the TVA are in charge of keeping all the different timelines of the multiverse in sync. And in fact, what they basically do is go around eradicating variant rebel timelines. And the problem you have in Loki, the story, is that Loki is abducted by the Time Variant Authority, the Timekeepers. And he's like, what do you want with me? Why am I here? And it turns out that he is there to capture multiple other Lokis who are time variants in other dimensions. So they need to get the trickster to catch the trickster. It's a sort of, the way the police will work with a mafia guy to get the other mafioso. But of course, it's Loki. He's a trickster. So how do you know who's zooming who? How do you know when you're...
It sounds very Doctor Who-ish. It sounds
It's really good. I have to say, it's really good.
And he is so sexy. I don't know if you've ever seen him on he's been on some Japanese talk shows where he breaks out into a dance and he does this marvelous dance that is just the sexiest thing. He's so tall and sexy.
Funny enough, I think he's least sexy with the long, straggly black hair as Loki. I find him sexy with it. But I also think this whole idea of the trickster and the liar is particularly pertinent to now. I think in the wake of Trump, someone who blatantly lies and almost has a certain insouciant charm about doing that is a figure for us all to grapple with. And in an era where, deep fakes have become a thing, I certainly feel that Loki is really one of the most interesting characters to be exploring and truly has a sort of a resonance in reality, a resonance that I never felt perhaps that he had.
But wait a minute, don't you sort of think that possibly in this era post-Trump that to deify or to glorify somebody who is a liar is probably the wrong thing to be doing right now?
They're not glorifying him. They are grappling with the problem. It's
no. There's no way you can tell me that everybody on the planet is in love with Loki right now, and you probably shouldn't be doing that.
I never would have picked you out to be a Puritan. I
don't know that we want to rule. I don't think we should.
Well, this. I know we're gonna go the slippery slope.
I heard. I don't know if it's true or not, but wasn't Disney going to buy DC too? So aren't these two universes about to collide?
It's true. Yes, it is true.
We're about to bring all these storylines into one universe.
Fabulous that would be. That's like two galaxies colliding.
Oh, it's terrible because we don't need to see Spider-Man fighting Batman.
The comic book nerds are just going to be twisting their panties.
James, I'm sure you're going to watch because in this series, he now is grappling with a Loki variant, and the Loki variant is Sylvie the Enchantress. So Loki has transformed himself into Sylvie the Enchantress. There's two Lokis going at it, and they're on a moon, on a train on a moon that is about to be destroyed. I mean, what more can you ask for?
Sold. Where do we watch?
Loki is streaming on Disney Plus. All right, let's take a quick break. Just before we go to the break, I got to tell you, Dragging the Classics, the Brady Bunch, is from World of Wonder, and it's launching June 30th on Paramount Plus. We created a special episode, Will the Real Jay and Brady Please Stand Up, in a one-of-a-kind event for Pride Month, using state-of-the-art technology, drag queens, and the original cast of the Brady Bunch. It's a complete recreation of the 30-minute episode of the Jan Brady episode in which she hates on her blonde hair and decides to go get a wig. In fact, and RuPaul makes a cameo appearance as the wig store attendant. And we recreated the set virtually. It is exact. This is
another episode of the WOW Report on Radio Andy. This is so far everything is meta.
Everything is meta, yeah.
But you actually have Jan Plum who did for many years distanced herself from the show, and she's back, which is very exciting. Eve Plum. I'm sorry, Eve Plum as Jan.
Eve Plum. And we have Bianca Del Rio, Ben de la Creme, Kylie Sonique Love, Nina West.
Nina West is Alice, isn't she?
Yes.
And Bianca is Carol, is the mom.
That's right. Ben de la Creme is Greg Brady. And Kylie Sonique Love is Jan Brady. And Michelle Visage is a hapless shop assistant at a wig shop.
That sounds amazing.
I've got a question for you boomers.
Excuse me.
I know he's such a little nudge.
Which of these four songs
I just want to say, Blake, that 35 turns into 45 awfully damn fast. You aren't going to know what hit you. And before you know it, you're going to be the old bald man sitting in a room full of wings.
It's just your generation.
No, it is.
I'm talking about your generation.
From now on, it is like circling the drain, and you are going to be old the next time you wake up. It happens. You think they're all prim and thinking you're so fabulous, but it's you're gonna be old.
Blake is just taking his revenge on us for us calling him the millennial producer all these years.
Okay, so
I'm staying out of this.
Which of these 4 songs was at the top of both the US and UK charts by The Police in June of '83? Was it Roxanne, Don't Stand So Close to Me, Every Breath You Take, or King of Pain?
It's a lot of choices.
83.
83.
June.
All right. You're listening to the WOW Report on Radio Andy, and we'll have the answer right after the break.
You're listening to World of Wonders WOW Report. Things that make us go wow.
Welcome back to the WOW Report. I'm Fenton here with James St. James, of course, and Trey Speegle, special guest, co-editor of the WOW Report. And Blake, before the break, you had a question for us.
Yeah, and which of these 4 songs was at the top of both the US and UK charts this month in 1983, the year I was 1 year old? Was it Roxanne, Don't Stand So Close to Me, Every Breath You Take, or King of Pain?
It was not Roxanne or Don't Stand So Close to Me, because those were like 80 and 81. So it is. I'm
going to say Every Breath You Take.
Every Breath You Take, which just was everywhere that for that whole summer.
You're
could
right.
Not escape it. Yeah.
It was Every Breath You Take.
Yeah.
What we should have said, since he called us boomers, is, who are the police? Meaning like the cops? Like what?
Like defund the police. Defund the police.
Exactly.
It's the Bobbies, Fenton, the Bobbies.
That's quite right. That's right. All right, let's go on with the countdown of the top 10 things this past week that made us go, wow. We've reached number 7.
Number 7.
It's Pride Month, obviously, and celebrities are coming out, one by one, day by day. Carl Nassib just came out, who was the first active NFL player.
Right, yeah.
Come out as gay, who's 6'7". And David Archuleta, from
Who's
American
not
Idol.
6'7".
We do need to pause and talk a little bit about Archie here, because he is. I've been in love with David Archuleta for a good 10 years now. I should have been worn my "I Love David Archuleta" T-shirt that I have. But he when he came out first, he said he came out to his family as gay, and
Like years ago,
yeah. And then he said that he realized that he was probably bisexual because he still had feelings for the opposite sex, and now he says that he's probably more on the asexual spectrum because he really doesn't have the sex drive that many of the people he knows does. And bless his heart, I feel like there's always been a lot of confusion and turmoil in his heart, and his father was very controlling, and I feel like his religion, he's Jehovah's Witness, and they are famously they fucked up Michael Jackson. They will fuck up anybody.
I don't really like the gays, right? You can't be gay.
Like the gays. So I love David, and I feel bad that he's always sort of in turmoil.
And he seemed to get not much love and attention for this, whereas I think the NFL, right?
Yeah.
Coming out, that is so huge and significant.
He's in the Raiders. He's in the Vegas Raiders, from the Vegas Raiders.
Well, the idea for this, the reason I sort of brought this up was, people seem to be coming out, but also the way that it seems that almost everyone prefers Instagram, because you can write a long post, you can make a video, you can put pictures. I did a post about 11 different people, and practically every single person had come out on Instagram. Not that people don't use Facebook or Twitter or TikTok. Or
I think you get
YouTube
more love
video.
on Instagram. I think it's safer to come out on Instagram than it is on Facebook, which will
And it's visual. And my point sort of was that it's interesting to me that people now have this, famous people, non-famous people. You know, we talk more about the famous people, but there are plenty of people in their normal everyday lives that are probably coming out on Instagram in ways that, you know, years ago that they didn't. And it does seem to be friendlier than Twitter, although all of it ends up on Twitter anyway. But
years ago, of course, it was handled by PR people, and you know, like Howard Bragman was the go-to guy if you were gay and going to come out. But I think he must be.
Yeah,
you
would get a People magazine cover automatically.
Or a Barbara Walters interview, or you know, or something. And it seemed to be made a bigger deal. So what's kind of good, I think, is that it seems less a big deal, which maybe I actually think that's a positive thing. That people,
it is. We are in a better place, I think. I do want to point out, as Blake has been pointing out over and over again for the past few minutes, is that the Carl, the NFL player, is a registered Republican. He has voted Republican in the last 5 elections, straight Republican, and he is a Trumpster from Tampa. So let's
cancel him right now.
Train is he's very cute.
Yes, but there's sort of two separate issues in some ways, but
if we have to cancel Caitlyn Jenner for doing the same thing, then this guy should be canceled.
But maybe the fact that we have a gay Trumpster is good, because maybe then it'll make the Trumpsters less.
But it didn't work for Caitlyn, did it?
Well,
it didn't really work for her.
Caitlyn is just a nightmare.
I have this to say in closing. Quentin Crisp used to say, in the future, people will say, I'm gay, and people will respond, and
yes, hopefully, yes.
So maybe we're getting there. Yes, we still get your political affiliation and your, you know, however you grew up, but I think it's probably easier for kids to come out now.
I think it depends where you live, to be honest. I think
that's also true.
A bit inconsistent.
That's
all right.
True.
Let's move on to number 6.
Number 6.
You know, the last couple of weeks I've been complaining that I can't figure out my HBO Max. It was not working. And so I spent like a day trying to get onto HBO Max. And I finally was able to figure it out a little bit. I still have some problems. But the first thing I watched was Wonder Woman 1984, which I wasn't able to watch last year when it came out. And we talked about the difference between MCU and the DCU. And this is it's a horrible movie. God,
isn't it bad?
It is so just bad. Awful. Dear God in heaven. And it makes me think that possibly you were right, Fenton, that Marvel is a little better. This, you know, it stars DC has a tendency to want to have 2 villains in every movie, and it's always overkill. It's always Penguin, Catwoman, Joker, Two-Face, In this, you have Maxwell Lord, who is like a Trumpian sort of business.
Who's the Mandalorian.
Yeah. Well, he's an 80s era businessman, and he's really annoying and really boring. And then you have Kristen Wiig, who plays her arch nemesis in the comics, Cheetah. And you think that is such like a perfect thing. It's going to be so fantastic. You're going to, the first 10 minutes are great. And then
she doesn't fight for an hour.
Yeah,
but just talk.
But when she does, it's just nothing but CGI, and it's like it just turns into this never-ending slog of a CGI crap fest. It goes on and on and on, and it's so full of itself and so boring. And there's no reason on earth it should be in 1984, except they wanted to put some ugly sweaters and big hairdos in there, and that's like a punchline every time you see one. And then Chris Pine is adorable. He's fabulous. I love him. Why they had brought him back to life to kill him again, it makes no sense. The whole movie is a mess. I was irritated and disappointed. I wanted to see some fabulous 80s stuff, but I didn't get it. It was just terrible.
Did you watch anything else on HBO Max?
No, because I ended up having to pay $9.99 a month to get onto HBO Max, which I shouldn't, because I already have HBO. But then in order to watch In the Heights, you have to pay $14.99 a month. Like you can watch it if you only pay $50. I hate HBO Max.
But don't cancel your subscription just yet, because James, WOW has 2 shows, great shows coming to HBO and HBO Max very soon.
Oh, I saw your post about that.
July 12th is Catch and Kill the podcast tapes with Ronan Farrow. That 2
Amazing.
episodes every night, back to back for 3 weeks. Then right after that, starting August 2nd, Small Town News, KVPM Pahrump, which is set in a local news station in Pahrump, which is like an hour outside Vegas.
That's where the Madam of Crystal was, the first lady.
It is, and that's where we discovered the news station. And we've been trying to set up that show ever since. That was 2008. So,
will you pay my $15 HBO so I can watch?
Well, it sounds like you've paid already, so you might as well just stick with it.
I've only paid the $9. You need to pay my extra $4.
James, I'll give you the money after the show.
And then I'll come on and we'll talk about it.
Venmo.
And you know what else I'll do for number 5?
Number 5.
I will bring over a box of Mochinuts. Have you ever had Mochinuts?
No.
A Mochinut is a donut made with sweet glutinous rice flour, and it produces a texture. It's not bready like a donut. It's bouncy and chewy.
We had them in Japan, I think, when we were in Tokyo. Yes,
they are so delicious. They are, and they look like a teething ring. They're like little balls that are joined together in a circle. We'll post pictures on the WOW Report. And they come covered in glorious colors like green for pistachio, mango, yellow, oob. That's a flavor, apparently. It's like a purple potato flavor. Malona. They're just incredible. And
where can you find them? Where have you been getting them?
The Mochinuts franchise is all over LA. There's one in Koreatown. Interestingly, you're right, James. It started in Japan, and then it sort of they were in Hawaii for a while, like 3 or 4 years ago, and they finally made it over here. I think actually they might have been around here for a little bit longer, but I remember the cronut. Everyone was talking about the cronut, and that was a huge sensation. I haven't heard anything about the Mochinuts. But
wait a minute, because you say Koreatown, and I live in Koreatown. Where in Koreatown? And you live near Koreatown.
I'll look it up. Put in
mochi ice cream. Isn't it mochi and ice cream?
Oh yeah, there is a mochi ice cream. Yeah,
it's called mochi because it's ice cream wrapped in a mochi coating, which is made of this glutinous flour.
Oh, so there is ice cream in it.
Yeah.
No, not in the Mochinuts. They're donuts made of them. It's just the mochi part, not the ice cream. But mochi ice cream's a little ice creams wrapped in mochi flavoring.
Yeah.
So Mochinut, James, I'm going to look it up on the Google for you in Koreatown. 3064 West 8th Street, which is just off Vermont. Okay.
Right. Okay. And I think isn't there like a mall right there, kind of?
Yes. And it closes at 8 p.m. So right after the show, you can just
race out and get me my Mochinuts.
I tell you, they are so delicious.
Are they expensive? How much do they cost?
Well, I don't know. Jazz Tange, who was on the show last week, before, very kindly for Dad's Day gave me a box of Mochinut donuts.
Wow.
So I don't know how much they cost because it'd be rude to ask.
Do you think that maybe Nolan, your baker's son, will start making them and start selling them?
Well, we'll try that. Yeah.
Nolan's Mochinuts.
Sounds wrong. Let's take a quick break.
It does sound wrong.
Trey's got a question for us.
I do have a question. So the Waldorf on Park Avenue and 51st Street is the second Waldorf Astoria. Do you know where the first Waldorf Astoria was? That's the whole question.
Have the answer right after the break. You're listening to the WOW Report on Radio Andy.
You're listening to World of Wonders WOW Report. Things that make us go wow.
And welcome back to the WOW Report. I am Fenton here with James St. James and standing in for Tom, Trey Speegle. And you had the question this time.
I did. So we were earlier talking about the Waldorf Astoria, and it takes up a full city block on Park Avenue, between Park Avenue and Lexington, I believe 51st and 52nd. But that was the second location of the Waldorf. Do you know where the first location was?
I'm going to say it was lower, and it was probably like closer to Times Square.
I was just going to say Connecticut.
I was gonna say, what if could it have been in Astoria, Queens?
These are all very good. Some of them. Very good.
The Astor is William Waldorf Astor.
Well, so the original was on 34th Street and Fifth Avenue. It was where the Empire State Building is now. So they tore
I did know that. Yes, I did know that.
There was the Waldorf and the Astoria. The Astoria was the residential and the Waldorf was the hotel. And Peacock Alley joined the two buildings.
And the Peacock that's where everyone would walk Peacock back and forth.
And they sold the property and it was torn down to build the Empire State Building, and it was built and opened in 1931. So it's very much if you look at it, it's very much in the style of that time period of
that deco-y.
And actually they were both sort of failures in the beginning because they opened during the Depression. But they were still sort of the height of glamour of New York. And the hotel has a fascinating history. But anyway, it used to be right there where the Empire State Building is today.
Fascinating.
All right. We've been counting down top 10 things that make us go wow this week. We've reached number 4.
Number 4.
Flack. Which
I've never heard of this.
Weird. You've never heard of Flack?
No.
So it's Amazon Prime.
You know what you're talking about. It's the PR people, right? And it's on Amazon Plus. Yes.
Amazon Prime, whatever. And it stars Anna Paquin, not to be confused with Julia Stiles, who I constantly confuse those two. And Julia is on Riviera, which is another sort of trashy tabloidy show, but it's much more murdery. Flack is not murdery at all. Julia Stiles works for this PR firm, and this, very tough boss is played by Sophie Okonedo. She was in Ratchet and she was in His Dark Materials. She just plays like perfect bitch boss. And they're sort of the hazmat cleanup team for celebrity train crashes. Whenever they happen, they're called in. So
they're the sexy version of Howard Bragman.
I get, if there's a dead hooker, if there's a bad tweet.
Howard is very sexy.
No, he is very sexy. But they're wearing Prada and Dior and Balenciaga.
It's very chic.
Yes.
One of the PR Flacks is just another bitch on wheels. Excuse the language, but she even calls herself that. But they have really great guest stars this year. Her love interest is Daniel Day Kim.
I love him so much. He's sexy.
Great. And you see him in his underwear and he plays a billionaire. And Julia Stiles is, Anna Paquin's mother is.
They both have weird teeth, don't they?
I know. And they all get the same roles too. But her mother is Martha Plimpton, who just chews the scenery. And
Martha Plimpton is old enough to be Anna Paquin's mother?
She looks like it in this. She looks like a few miles of bad road a little bit.
I still think of Martha Plimpton as being a teenager.
Yeah, no, she's she looks a little rough here, but on purpose. But it sort of reminded me because in a past life I was the art director of Us Weekly, so in the early 2000s I was involved in this sort of celebrity tabloid train wreck. And
are a lot of the scenarios and storylines based sort of on real life, or are
they seem to be? There's a black politician who comes to them who wants to be mayor, and so they set him up to confront a crowd, and they plant some guy that's going to punch him and make him look like a hero, but the guy runs off, and there's another guy wearing the same outfit who really does, like, the crowd really just beats him to a pulp. But then he's trending and is going to win as mayor because, he broke 8 fingers. And actually, in this, the one that I just watched, Jane Horrocks is in it, who you may know as Bubble.
Right, from Ab Dotting, yes.
And she makes a mistake with a tweet and tweets something kind of racist, but it was really sort of innocently done. But then she starts to get all this positive feedback. So suddenly the right turns to her and brings her into the fold. And she's kind of a has-been celebrity. So she jumps on the chance, even though she doesn't agree with the politics. She just plays with it. So it's really, I mean, it's very much about these times. It takes place in London. So the celebrities don't necessarily translate to here. But in a way, that's kind of good because you're not trying to figure out who everybody is. But it's very well acted. There's a lot of drama. And Anna Paquin's life is a mess. It's just a complete mess, which is the irony, is she fixes everybody else's life, but hers is just a train wreck.
Well, I know my sister keeps trying to get me to watch this, and she keeps talking about.
Well, you should start with season 1 for sure.
Okay.
I mean, they do stand alone, but season 1's quite good too. But it's on Amazon, and it's on. I think there's 6 episodes.
All right.
Okay.
Watch Flack on Amazon Prime. 1098. Number 3. Thank you. 3.
Number 3.
Yes. I over the weekend I watched Moby Doc, which it's funny because it took me about half an hour watching it to realize it's a play on Moby Dick. Moby Doc. It's about the DJ Moby.
Who is related to Melville, right? Who wrote Moby Dick?
To Herman Melville, yes,
exactly.
And so it plays on that level as well. We talk about how things have been so meta in this episode, and this is incredibly meta. It's very surreal. It's nonlinear. There are animated bits. He's talking to a therapist at one point. He has friends who come on and reenact parts from his life. There are interviews with David Bowie, which you would go, but him and David Bowie were apparently very good friends, and he and David Lynch are very good friends. And David comes on and interviews him. There's archival footage. He's playing with an orchestra. And it's really fascinating. And, he's had a very tough life. I mean, a lot of his childhood, his upbringing he was brought up very poor, and his mother was a drug addict. And, but so much of, I also read his biography, Porcelain, which deals with his 90s. And so much of that music is just the soundtrack to our lives. It was in a million TV commercials, all those songs, Porcelain, Go, South Side with Gwen Stefani. All of that is just like so imbued in who we are. And it's fascinating. And I've known Moby since the 90s. And we had a chance to talk to him at WOW the other day. And I enjoyed him, and I enjoyed the documentary. And I think everybody should watch it.
He is so thoughtful, isn't he? And just so sort of smart and lovely and generous too. I mean, he
is somebody who, and we were talking, I was mentioning Tracy Lords, and how I said that Tracy has that same energy as Monica Lewinsky, and the same energy as him, where they have seen the worst of humanity. People have been so awful to them so consistently, and they've come out on the other side, and they're very thoughtful and very centered and grounded. And Moby really is, he's somebody that you can just talk to for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. And he's always bringing something to the plate. He's just fascinating.
Did you meet him downtown, James? Like in the
Yeah, because when we were talking at Mars, he was the DJ at Mars. And that's when he really started. That's like sort of the birthplace of rave music in New York, is where everyone started going to the basement at Mars, and people were talking about this weird new sound that was happening, and the weird new dance and fashion and stuff. So I knew him from then. And also, he was talking to us the other day that he had a band with Keoki in 1989, and I don't remember that at all. I'm gonna have to ask, because it's just bizarre to me that it was him and Jennifer Lewis, Steve Lewis's wife, and Moby, and they for a trio. I don't know. Anyway, moving along.
All right. Let's move on to number 2.
Number 2.
I just want to quickly follow up on something we talked a bit about last week. I was going on about the color of cars, and I've noticed that all the cars were in the 90s started going silver and then gray. And then what prompted this was noticing a new kind of gray. Well, I didn't know what it was called last week when I did the podcast. And I've done some more sort of deep dive on Google. And this kind of color is called Nardo gray. I don't know why it's called Nardo gray. I'm still not able to find out why. I thought maybe it was Leonardo, like Nardo, short Leonardo gray. I don't know. But Nardo gray was a gray color launched by Audi for their high-end cars. And it just took off like wildfire. And James, you said, oh, yes, you know, billionaires wrap their cars in these things. Well, you're sort of right, because the demand for this color was so intense that Audi couldn't any longer control it and monopolize it. And it's become available in vinyl wraps, which is the thing where you get your car, instead of repainting it, you get it wrapped in vinyl, and it looks just like a paint job. So,
well, I'm looking on Urban Dictionary right now, and I see that a Nardo is a kind, beautiful, hot, smart, and confident bestie who will always have your best friend. But it's also a kind of sweet bundle of candy. If you get a Nardo, it's a sweet bundle of. And I'm wondering if the wrap of the candy or something is maybe where that comes from. It's also a city in Spain. I don't know. I'm just throwing all these things out here.
Well, Nardo Gray is also known as, sometimes it's called Battleship Gray or Primer or Unfinished Gray, because it's normally...
Is it matte?
It's normally an undercoat. No, it can be glossy. It can be glossy or matte. But Trey, it's a kind of paint that is very flat looking. It's not about its glossiness. It's just got a certain amount of white in it that it feels very chalky and very solid. It almost actually looks like it is vinyl, sort of. And it's so hard to describe, but it's...
What, you saw it on an Audi in person?
It's not, now
apparently Fenton has been seeing them every time he walks out the door. He sees this.
I just see Nardo Gray everywhere. It's Nardo Gray.
It's an LA thing, maybe.
It might be an aneurysm, but
are you smelling copper?
We're doing a senior moment here. No, just Google Nardo Gray in images, Trey, and you'll go, oh, that it looks. I think it makes cars look like toys, like toy models, like children's toys. But I just can't find enough out about it. And some people love it, and some people hate it. It's like,
do you know this color called Vanta Black?
Yes, that's super black.
Yes, that is the artist Anish Kapoor. Bought the patent to it, and apparently it's 99.9999, like it's the blackest thing in the world. So if you paint it on the floor, it looks like a hole. It looks like a black hole to the
absorbs
end of the universe. And he made all the artists mad that he's monopolized this paint. But I was imagining a Vanta Black car.
But this is maybe this is the grayest gray. I don't know. It's. Have you seen any cars, James, with it since I've been around?
The one that I always see the matte black that looks like a Batmobile. It's very matte and it's very black, and I see it in matte gray. So it might be the Nardo gray. I don't know. But the color I see this weird orange that I see it all orange, like orange Mercedes, orange Audis, orange. I see that all the time lately. It's a very vibrant orange, and it seems like a new color that's sort of coming onto the scene.
James, you know that I like Soviet bus stops, and I feel I've now become obsessed by car colors because, you know, like that sort of green, racing car green, that sort of bottle, it's like a lovely dark green, and that's always associated with British racing cars and sports cars. Did you know that?
No.
Okay. Well, that ruins my story. But basically,
do you know what you're talking about? Yes. Oh, the green from the sports cars.
Oh,
yes. The British racing cars.
Now. Thank you. It happened because white and blue had been taken by the US as racing colors. Germany and France had taken other colors. So the only color that was left was green. And motor racing was illegal in the UK at the time. So all the races were held in Ireland. And because it was Ireland, which is known as the Emerald Isle, they painted the race cars green. And that's why these dark green racing cars are always associated with the UK. Who knew?
Another trivia question. I actually have one more before we take a break.
I love it.
How many years has Trey here worked with us at World of Wonder on the WOW Report?
We'll have the answer right after the break. You're listening to the WOW Report on Radio Andy.
You're listening to World of Wonders WOW Report. Things that make us go wow.
Welcome back to the WOW Report. I'm very excited this week because we have Trey Speegle here as our special guest. And he is the subject of this week's question.
Yes, I asked, how many years has Trey been working with us on the WOW Report?
At this point, we insert the meme or the gif of the old lady from Titanic saying, "It's been 88 years."
Exactly. I started when I was 11.
Well, Trey, why don't you just tell us for our number one?
Number one.
It was 8 years ago tomorrow, on June 26, 2013, that I did my first post for the WOW Report. And it was at the same time, that day, the Supreme Court overturned DOMA. And I lived in the West Village, and so I walked over to the stone wall and took a picture, and there were news crews there. And 2 years later, on the same date, June 26th in 2015, was when the 14th Amendment required all U.S. state laws to recognize same-sex marriage.
I was at Stonewall that day, and I was crying and sobbing. That was such a momentous day.
Yeah. And that same summer, 2 years into writing for the WOW Report, is when Trump announced his candidacy. So I must say that a big chunk of what I've written for the WOW Report, all of the air got sucked out of the room by Trump. I mean, we're just now coming out of every other post not being about some hideous thing he did.
I want to say that my first day doing the WOW Report full time was July 9th, 2009, I think. And you know this day because I walked in terrified, like not knowing what I was going to blog about or anything. And that morning, Farrah Fawcett died. And 2 hours later, Michael Jackson died. And the whole day was just like, blah, 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 like that. And I just remember like that was my first day blogging. And that was quite a hell of a day to start.
That you beat me there. That's pretty incredible. Poor Farrah, like she got,
just got the shaft. Didn't she?
Totally.
Well, I started at WOW, and I was so pissed because like literally a week before I started, Amy Winehouse filmed her Tears Dry on Their Own video right in front of our office. And Stephen Korf went out and has that wonderful picture with her. Theron got a picture with her, I think. They are both in the video.
Oh, they are. That's true.
Yeah, Stephen carries his pug out of our door, and Theron walks by on crutches.
Yeah.
All of the milestones that have gone through the WOW Report. So what was the first year of the blog?
Well, we've debated this.
I think
Fenton, I believe it started online, like as a mail out. You would mail it every month or every week.
Yeah, well, that's not a blog though. But
it was called the WOW Report, and it was and it was the top 10 things that made us go wow that week, and that was in 2000, and then 2004.
In 2000.
It was 2000, and then in 2004 is when it became a blog. And that's when we were in Tokyo. It all comes wrapped up in a bin. And we came back, and Stephen had the month of February. You guys just tried out different styles and different things. And it was he had a whole month to try out before it went live in March of 2004. Am I right?
Wow. Yep, the legendary Stephen Saban was like,
then to wrap it
yes,
all
and when I started, I remember Stephen was still, the late great Stephen Saban was still blogging, and he used to send me all these email about style and what I was doing wrong, and he was so cranky about everything, and
God
so
bless
funny.
him. He and I, people still who worked in the office are still traumatized, have PTSD, because he and I would argue over, the Oxford comma loudly and call each other, "You motherfucker." We would scream at each other. People would run and hide. We would argue.
James would run into my office in tears on a daily basis. I can't take it.
Whether it was one space or two space after the periods. And he was a stickler. God bless him. He was old school journalism.
So I don't feel so bad. My niggling email about, link to this post, or I thought maybe I had taken his place.
So it started as a newsletter for the top 10 things that go wow, and now here we are on radio, Andy, with the top 10 things that go wow.
21 years ago.
Yeah.
The more things la plus ça change. What is the French expression?
Plus la même chose.
La même chose.
The more they change, the more they are the same.
I want to just say that I still enjoy it. this last year during the pandemic, right after it hit, none of us knew what to do. And we just sort of, I kind of clung to the WOW Report, and it was a way to connect to the world and sort of talk about what was going on. But I used to work as
that. Imagine if we were just sitting at home. I mean, it really was a way to every morning you get up and you looked at what's going on in the world and you try and find some joy,
the world that was ending.
Happiness.
Yes, you try to find something, and eventually we sort of found our way out of it. I mean, watching you guys, you used to be all in a room together, and now you're still not. But I've been a visual person most of my life, and I wrote a lot of headlines when I would work on stories at Us Weekly and different magazines and stuff. But I checked, and I've done 9,800 posts, and I do about 100 a month. So before the end of the summer, I'll hit 10,000 posts.
That's crazy.
So I know you've got me beat, James, by miles.
Because I remember when Saban hit his 10,000th post, and there was a cake and everything, and we'll have to have you back.
This is my cake, or I'll come back at 10,000. No,
we're going to get you some Mochinuts. We're going to get you some Mochinuts.
Oh, can you FedEx those, please? I'll give you the address. My brother Tad, who lives in Austin, Texas, he is constantly sending me. He's very tuned into what is a good WOW story. He knows what he knows the kind of stories that WOW readers like and that I write about.
All this time, I thought it was you, and you're genius.
Yeah. No. Well, it's my
Friday.
But yeah, and other people occasionally send me story ideas and stuff too. But Tad has really, this last couple of years, especially been sending me a lot of stuff. But thank you to World of Wonder, to Fenton and Randy, and you, James. And we're not on the same coast, but I still feel, part of it. And I love watching and listening to the WOW Report on Radio Andy, because I feel like I'm hanging out with you guys. So
thank you, Trey.
Thank you, Theron. Thank you, Fenton. Thank you, Trey. Thank you, everybody. God bless and good night.
Yeah, that's all we have time for. I just want to say one thing, though, before we leave. To the Academy voters out there, to our devoted listeners who are Academy voters, we have several documentaries and shows for your consideration, because this is the last week you can vote for the Emmys. With Trixie and Katya.
I thought you were just having that aneurysm again.
Fashion photo review, RuPaul's Drag Race, RuPaul's Drag Race Untucked, RuPaul's Drag Race Corona Can't Keep a Good Queen Down, Homemade Astronauts, which we haven't talked much about, on Discovery Plus, Homeschool the Musical, the class of 2020 on HBO Max, and last but not least, Going to Pot, which is very much what this show is, on Paramount Plus. So if you have a moment, if you're voting, please do consider those shows for the Emmys.
You are shameless. I
am. Actually,
I don't feel bad about plugging my shows now at all.
Is it even legal to do that? Have I broken the rules? Am I going to get
absolutely not? I mean, our boss, Bravo Andy, I mean, he's made a show of it, a hit show.
Well,
when you start saying you're going to start sending mochi nuts to everyone who votes,
mochi nuts to everyone who votes.
That's where you start breaking some laws.
Okay, Pia Zadora.
We need a disclaimer here.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Trey, and thank you for all your contributions over the years. Thank you, James. Love you too, and thank you, Blake, our former millennial producer, because you're millennial no more.
Quickly aging millennial producer.
How dare you?
Same time, same place next week. Until then, go out and do something that makes the world go wow.
Wow.